August 1944. After Normandy cracks open, Allied forces surge east, faster than any planner dared imagine. Patton's Third Army tears across French countryside at unheard-of rates, 30, 40, sometimes 50 miles in a single day. But speed brings a brutal arithmetic. The advance is outrunning its lifeline. Tanks drink fuel by the gallon. Infantry divisions swallow hundreds of tons of supplies every day: ammunition, food, medicine, spare parts. Ports are crippled or too distant. Cherbourg is barely usable after German sabotage. Antwerp, the next big harbor, won't be ready for months. That means every necessity must be trucked inland from the beaches, hundreds of miles over shattered roads the retreating Wehrmacht left behind. At Supreme Headquarters, the numbers look like a countdown. Every Sherman burns fuel by the mile. Each division demands mountains of material. Supply officers watch columns of figures that simply don't add up. Patton's spearhead is running on fumes. Forward units report days, not weeks, of ammunition. Tank battalions are stopped not by enemy fire, but by empty tanks. On August 21st, during a briefing, Colonel Frank Ross bluntly tells Eisenhower, "We are losing nearly a quarter of our supplies before they reach the front. Accidents, breakdowns, German air attacks. If Patton halts, the moment to destroy German cohesion slips away. If he pushes without logistics, his army collapses." Weeks of fixes are needed, redesigning convoys, building maintenance hubs, time they do not possess. 90 miles from headquarters, a tired trucker in a diesel-smelling coverall stares at the smoked hulks of a shattered convoy. Technical Sergeant Raymond Kowalski, a Pittsburgh long hauler pressed into service, has been driving heavy rigs for 15 years. No academy pedigree, no staff college, just street-hard experience hauling steel through Appalachia. He watches 8 burned trucks, supplies strewn across the verge after a Luftwaffe strafing. He remembers an old dispatcher saying, "Convoys are for show, spacing is where profit and survival is found." The Red Ball Express, the emergency lifeline, runs by strict doctrine. Mass 50 or more trucks together, 60 yards between vehicles, a maximum pace forced by procedure. The logic: strength in numbers, mutual support, ease of defense. Kowalski has run these convoys, all of them taking casualties. He notices a pattern. When trucks bunch, they become a single, visible target. When the lead vehicle spots aircraft, everything stops. The convoy cannot maneuver. The spacing that is supposed to protect them becomes a perfect kill zone. But there's another pattern he can't ignore. At one depot, some trucks are loaded faster than others. A few impatient drivers, once finished, simply leave alone. Those solo runs arrive safely. The assembled convoys get hammered. Kowalski tracks the data in a battered notebook. Conventional convoys suffer losses approaching a quarter shipments. The handful of independent, staggered runs he observes lose barely 3%. The math is grim and simple. One big target invites the Luftwaffe. Many small, unpredictable targets force the enemy to waste scarce fuel and pilots hunting marginal gains. He takes the notebook to his company commander and announces he can cut losses by 90%. The reaction is swift and dismissive. "You're a truck driver. Leave tactics to West Point," Captain Dennis Hayes says. The formal response is a footnote, proposal forwarded up with a recommendation to dismiss. Battalion HQ cites doctrine. Scattered trucks create communication gaps, eliminate mutual support, violate procedure. Kowalski laughs at the memo. He's spent seasons understanding engines and roads while paper officers lecture on tactics, but he doesn't stop. He moves up the chain. Lieutenant Colonel Martin Burgess listens, concedes the logic, but worries aloud. What if a truck breaks down alone? Hostile pockets of German units still crawl the backroads. Convoy security covers more than air attacks. It guards against ambush and mechanical failure. Kowalski replies the losses are already unacceptable. The convoy doctrine itself is bleeding the army. He'll take his chances. The alternative, he argues, is to accept wholesale attrition. At a driver's briefing, his colleagues shout him down. Better to be together, they say, because at least you have support. His own squad distances itself. Yet 3 drivers quietly agree. James Booker, Eddie Martinez, and Willie Jackson are willing to try the theory if given the order. Colonel Ross answers with a stamped denied across Kowalski's plan. Unauthorized deviation is prohibited. Offenders will face court-martial. The method dies on paper, except it doesn't die in the stack of reports Lieutenant General Walter Bedell Smith reads, late at night. Smith, Eisenhower's merciless chief of staff, the man who reads everything, finds the data in the after-action reports. He reads the notebook, the casualty tables, the anecdotal accounts from motor pools. Patton has been ordered to halt. The British ration ammunition. The collapse of momentum sits like a stone in the staff's gut. Smith summons Ross and asks bluntly why a rejected trucker's note was dismissed when the figures show disaster. Expected parameters, Ross replies feebly. Smith's voice is cold. Expected parameters are why Patton is immobilized. He wants Kowalski brought to him. 2 hours later, the diesel-scented sergeant stands before senior officers in a headquarters tent, coveralls still dusty, beard stubble unshaved. He lays out the simple alternative: load trucks as they're ready, dispatch them immediately at staggered intervals. Don't assemble convoys for scheduled departure, stream vehicles continuously. Spread 20 trucks across hours and miles, not feet. The Luftwaffe can't economically attack single trucks scattered in time and space. Breakdowns still happen, but one disabled vehicle no longer stops 19 others. Escorts will patrol as before, but will not be tethered to immobile formations. Colonel Ross protests, anecdotal, too small a sample. Smith has no time for procrastination. He orders a trial, 1 week, 20 trucks using Kowalski's dispatch. If losses fall below 10%, roll it out. The colonels groan. Ross swears he'll take the blame if it collapses. Smith gives Kowalski the chance anyway. On September 1st, the test begins. Under doctrine, all 20 trucks would be loaded, wait hours, then depart in formation at regulated speeds. Kowalski's approach is different. The first truck leaves as soon as it's loaded at dawn. The next leaves 20 minutes later, the next 15 after that. Rather than a noon mass departure, vehicles stream out between 0600 and 1100, 5 hours of staggered dispatch. Drivers are told to use judgment. If the road is clear, push to safe speeds. If it's dangerous, slow down. Observers mark violations, too fast, no convoy discipline, but they also mark arrivals. The results are immediate. Trucks reach forward dumps faster than ever. The first truck arrives 12 hours after leaving, quicker than convoy averages. Breakdowns remain isolated incidents. One flat tire, change roadside, costs only that driver time. German fighters spot only a few trucks. Intercepting a solitary vehicle is rarely worth the expenditure. One Luftwaffe pilot makes a pass and returns to base empty-mouthed. Day after day, the loss ratios plummet. By the 5th day, skepticism in the colonel's faces turns to disbelief as statistics show losses dropping from about 23% to below 3%. Delivery speed increases, too. The experiment's success is undeniable. On September 7th, General Bedell Smith signs the order. The Red Ball Express will adopt Kowalski's staggered dispatch protocol. Within weeks, the change scales. Depots keep loading around the clock. Trucks leave every few minutes rather than in mortal waves. By mid-September, nearly 6,000 vehicles have gone over to the new method. In the following 8 weeks, losses fall to under 3%, delivery speed jumps by a third, and the flow of supplies to frontline armies more than doubles. Enough fuel, ammunition, and parts to press Patton's drive all the way to the German border. By autumn 1944, the numbers speak for themselves. German airmen file bitter reports. One Luftwaffe squadron commander, writing in October, admits defeat. Allied supply trucks now move unpredictably at irregular intervals along no fixed route. Hunting them is a waste of precious fuel and ammunition. His recommendation is blunt: abandon attacks on logistics, focus on supporting ground troops instead. The Americans have made truck hunting economically impossible. Each fighter sent to intercept a lone truck is one less available to defend the Reich's skies or reinforce the front. The revolution in logistics has changed the war's tempo. With Kowalski's system, the Red Ball Express delivers over 400,000 tons of supplies in less than 3 months, enough to sustain 6 entire Allied armies, surging from the beaches of Normandy to the gates of Germany. Patton's Third Army, once paralyzed by dry fuel tanks, now moves again, its columns stretching deep into enemy territory. Historians will later debate whether victory in Europe was won through combat brilliance or logistical mastery. The truth, as always, lies between. Firepower wins battles, but supply keeps armies alive. What Kowalski discovered, what the staff officers missed, was that logistics itself could be a weapon. Disorganization, when structured with intelligence, becomes invisibility. Randomness becomes protection. The enemy cannot hit what he cannot predict. Within weeks, the system spreads far beyond France. The British Eighth Army in Italy tests the method and finds similar success. Even planners in the Pacific begin adapting the idea for island-hopping campaigns. Across every theater, supply chains evolve into fluid, decentralized systems. The Germans, meanwhile, are left puzzled. A captured Wehrmacht officer interrogated near Aachen sums it up with frustration. "We can't target what we can't predict. Your trucks are like ghosts everywhere and nowhere." That line reaches Eisenhower's desk, and he underlines it. In the margin, he writes, "This sergeant's method has forced the enemy to concede the logistics battle. Recommend formal recognition." On November 18, 1944, just 2 days after the Red Ball Express ceases operations, Technical Sergeant Raymond Kowalski receives the Bronze Star Medal for meritorious service. His citation specifically notes innovative tactical logistics methods that significantly reduced supply losses and enhanced operational effectiveness. For the truck driver from Pittsburgh, it's a quiet end to a loud experiment. When the war ends, he goes home the way he came, back to the road. No interviews, no fame, no book deals. Just diesel, asphalt, and silence. The medal stays in a drawer, but his idea continues to move armies. In 1947, the U.S. Army Transportation Corps formally incorporates staggered dispatch into doctrine. At Fort Lee, Virginia, new logistics officers study it as a case lesson in innovation under fire. The instructors repeat his story like folklore, the working-class sergeant who changed convoy warfare with a notebook and a stubborn refusal to obey bad orders. Over the next decades, Korea, the Berlin airlift, Vietnam, Desert Storm, Iraq, Afghanistan, the same principle guides military transport: never make yourself a predictable target. Technology advances, but the rule remains. Modern convoys use GPS, encrypted communications, and satellite tracking. Yet the underlying logic hasn't changed since that smoky afternoon on a French road. Disperse your movement, confuse your enemy, and keep the flow alive. Efficiency through unpredictability. Even outside the military, the philosophy takes root. Civilian logistics quietly adopts the same DNA. The just-in-time delivery model used by companies like FedEx, UPS, and Amazon is a peacetime reflection of Kowalski's wartime logic: constant motion, continuous dispatch, distributed routes. Trucks no longer wait in waves, they move in streams. Factories no longer stockpile for months, they resupply daily. Vulnerability shrinks as distribution spreads. What started as one sergeant's act of defiance becomes the backbone of global commerce. The core insight is simple but timeless. Bunching creates vulnerability. Spacing creates resilience. Whether it's trucks, ships, or data packets on a network, the same rule applies. In 2003, the U.S. Army Transportation Museum at Fort Lee opens a permanent Red Ball Express exhibit. Amid the maps and photographs sits a small, grease-stained notebook, Kowalski's own. Its penciled numbers, hand-drawn charts, and rough calculations tell the whole story. Next to it, a photo of him leaning against his GMC truck, cigarette in hand, unshaven and unbothered. The placard below reads, "Sometimes the greatest innovations come not from generals or theorists, but from the people doing the job." Raymond Kowalski dies in 1983 at age 73. His obituary in the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette mentions his Bronze Star, but not the revolution it symbolized. To neighbors, he's just another quiet veteran, a man who drove trucks in the war and never talked about it. But to the U.S. Army, and to the global logistics industry that unknowingly inherited his method, he remains the invisible architect of modern mobility.